guys, hey everyone.
Hi
I'm
everyone.
Frank.
I'm
Frank with
Arbulo.
Buidl and Kevin from Buidl Guidl. So today is the second episode of our Road to ETHRome. All the roads lead to ETHRome. This is the new title. This is the second episode, and in this format, we want to share some time with our partner, with our sponsor that believe in us and in the ETHRome Hackathon, of course. And so sharing some stories, sharing some point of views, and yeah, the road to ETHRome officially started. So I'm Frank. I'm one of the co-founder of Buidl.it and one of the organizer of ETHRome. Today we have Buidl Guidl. I'm super excited personally because I started basically my Web3 journey following Buidl Guidl and following Austin Griffith videos on YouTube. So thank you very much, Kevin. And if you want to make a short presentation of yourself and a short presentation of Buidl Guidl.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks everyone for being here today. Thanks for having me on. I'm like super excited about ETHRome. You know, you guys are just a great team, and you guys are really starting to build something awesome. And I'm excited to see all the hackers there. So make sure you come say hi. My name is Kevin Jones. I am a member of the BuildGuild, working and helping support Scaffold-ETH, which I'm going to show off a little bit and talk a little bit about today. I also work as a DevRel engineer for Edge and Node, so supporting the graph ecosystem. So yeah, I do a lot of stuff around like blockchain data, obviously building subgraphs and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm really excited about the hackathon specifically. You know, I think it's just a great opportunity for you know, Rome to get put on the map here. And yeah, we're here to support from the BuildGuild and from you know, the graph perspective on anything you guys need. So yeah, let's build something cool.
Yeah, guys, you should know that Kevin is a real OG of the space. So
not that OG.
Yeah.
It's funny with crypto, OG like could be like a year
Yeah,
and a half, 2
you're
years, right? Like yeah.
Okay.
But
today we have,
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, sorry, Kevin. Just a short presentation from Arbulo. If you want to introduce yourself, then we can start.
Yeah. So hi everyone. I'm Arbulo Paolo, and I'm also one of the co-founders of the Urbe.it community and one of the organizers behind the ETHRome Hackathon. And yeah, I'm a software developer, and yeah, I'm really glad to be here today in this evening live, or like in the morning for Kevin in this case. And yeah, I would like also to thank Kevin for joining us and for supporting us at ETHRome. And yeah, so we can start with the live.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Paolo. So Kevin, let's start. Let's talk about Buidl Guidl. So what is Buidl Guidl and why Buidl Guidl?
Yeah, Buidl Guidl is so if you spell the words, it's Buidl Guidl or Buidl Guidl. It's kind of just a fun take on like HODL, like but for like development. The BuildGuild is a huge community of developers. So there's about 800 developers, and most of them have come into the ecosystem by using Scaffold-ETH. Scaffold-ETH is like a toolkit. If anyone hasn't heard of it, it's awesome, great place to start, and it's a really good thing for hackathons as well. Kind of comes with everything you need. And yeah, the BuildGuild is a group of all these developers that kind of have come into the ecosystem, and they help support the community by building, you know, features or, you know, showing off things that they build using Scaffold-ETH. And we have about 80 core, I should say, members that have an active stream as well. So we actually incentivize developers in the ecosystem that come into the BuildGuild to actually get paid with a stream in ETH, almost like an UBI, to contribute to the community. And so any developer that wants to be involved, it's pretty easy. You can actually go on to Speedrun Ethereum, which I can show off as well. Actually, it might make sense for me to share my screen real quick and just kind of show this real quick.
Yeah, sure.
Let me share my screen here. And can you guys see it okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyone on their computer can go to speedrunethereum.com, and it's this really cool kind of almost like gamified challenge-based example where you can like connect your wallet and you can sign the transaction. Let me unlock it real quick here. And as you connect your wallet, you get set up with a profile. And you can imagine that you go through these challenges, or what we call them quests, where you do just different tasks. So like setting up a simple NFT and deploying it to a test net, then deploying a staking app, and then a token vendor. And after you finish the second challenge, you actually are invited to join the Build Guild, and your profile gets upgraded to the Build Guild. There's a bunch of other things you can do on here. The next one is a dice game. There's also like to build a DEX, which gets a little more complicated, and then actually doing like state channels and setting up channels, multi-sig wallet, and SVG NFT. So there's all these really cool things you can do. And the idea is that after you go through Speedrun Ethereum, you're kind of like vetted and like you have a really good understanding of how to build a dApp. And then, like I said, after the third one, you get upgraded to the Build Guild. And the Build Guild is this, again, this community of developers that are kind of supporting the ecosystem, have gone through some challenges, and they're using Scaffold-ETH too. There's a lot of cool stuff that's been built with it. There's a whole list of projects here. ABI Ninja is one that probably a lot of people have heard of. There's also a Scaffold wallet that is available for Android. And then you can actually click this and see all the projects. But let's go to the app real quick. I just want to kind of show how this looks. So, you know, if you connect your wallet, connect to MetaMask, just like you normally would. Let's connect to this one, connect. And the first time it's going to do is going to set you up with like a little account. And then you can kind of see your activity. So like currently at this wallet, I don't have any activity, but we can see here right away that there's over 830 builders in the ecosystem. There's been 864 builds of Scaffold-ETH that have showed off something interesting or provided value to the community. And we've streamed over 500 ETH to developers, which is really awesome. And so, yeah, these are all just great ways that you can get involved in the Build Guild.
That's great. And I have a question for you. So regarding the BuildGuild in general, because I feel like the goal of BuildGuild is to help developers and people learning how to develop in the Web3, but also helping people switching from Web2 to Web3. So is this the goal of BuildGuild? So helping developers in their journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of, there's also the BuildGuild Labs, which is I would say that it's a few core members, Austin Griffith, Eda, and Carlos, and they get together, and sometimes Shiv as well. These are all members that are working on the core features of Scaffold-ETH, Scaffold-ETH2, and a lot of the tooling. And we do a lot of like videos about like that experience, like coming from Web 2 to Web 3 and some of the basic concepts. And so, yeah, there's a lot of that. Obviously, Speedrun Ethereum is just a huge place to start if you're just getting going, because it really does kind of start you at the very, very beginning. And so, yeah, that is definitely one of the things for the Build Guild is to foster bringing developers in from Web 2 to Web 3, or even just new developers as well that maybe don't have a background in Web 2, but they have some coding experience, and like teaching them about Solidity, teaching them about smart contracts, and some of the concepts. And yeah, any of you guys don't follow Austin Griffith, I highly recommend that because he's a wealth of knowledge, and he has a lot of content he's created on his YouTube that kind of will help you along that journey, right?
Yeah. So Kevin talked about Scaffold-ETH. You mentioned it multiple times. Also, I think that it came up the other day on our Discord server too. I think that some of you guys were like fiddling around with it. And so could you like give us like how does Scaffold-ETH work, what it is, and I don't know if you want also to show it maybe.
Yeah, I think that actually makes the most sense. Let me share my screen again here, and let's just kind of like show it off. So if anyone is at home and they want to like try out Scaffold-ETH, there's different ways you can do it. You could just go to the GitHub repo, which is available. You can just search for Scaffold-ETH. There's two versions of Scaffold-ETH. There's the original version, which is of course version 1, and then now there's Scaffold-ETH2. We recommend using Scaffold-ETH2 because it's a little more feature rich. It's well, I would say it's more actively developed, and it's kind of like the new cool thing to use. It's really easy to get set up with it. You can just either clone the repository, or there's also a new kind of in beta NPX command that we're allowing users to do. So I'm going to show up the old school way first. If you go to Scaffold-ETH.io, this will take you to this landing page, which kind of walks through a little bit of what the features are and how it works, and gives you these links. But let's kind of dive into it a little bit, and let me show you guys. Everything you do in Scaffold-ETH, you kind of use like 3 windows for, and that's because you need one window to always have your chain up. You need another window to have your front end framework up, and then you need like a third window to where you can like do your deploy commands and like tinker around with the configuration files or whatever you want to do. So I'm using Tmux, which anyone who doesn't know Tmux, is really awesome. Highly recommend using it, but it just allows me to split my windows up. So that's why we see 3 windows here. I've gone ahead and I already checked out the repository here, so it's here. I also went ahead and did the yarn install ahead of time because it takes about 30 seconds or so to do. So I've installed all the dependencies. It is a yarn monorepo, and so the cool thing about that is the package JSON's already written for you, and there's a lot of interesting and easy to use yarn commands to get up and started. So the first one you need to know is yarn chain. So that's it. You just install the dependencies, do a yarn chain, and that's going to spin up a copy of Hardhat. NPX allows you to use Foundry, which I'll show that off in a little bit, but the base version of Scaffold-ETH comes with Hardhat. So we have Hardhat up and running. Then we can go to this next window and we can do yarn start. And yarn start is going to do exactly that. It's going to start up the development server for React with Next.js. And so we can see that's already up and running actually. Then in this like third window is kind of where you start like doing your deploys. And so we can do a yarn deploy -- reset, which is going to force a new contract, and we can deploy our smart contract. So Scaffold-ETH does come with a smart contract, and you can see here that we were able to deploy our contract. We got the address, we see how much gas was used, we can see some output in the Hardhat console, which is really useful because there's already some console logging that we're doing there inside the deploy script. And so we're able to kind of see our smart contract. So let's take a look at the UI real quick. Let's go there. So we'll go to localhost 3000 where Scaffold-ETH should be running. And this is the UI of Scaffold-ETH. And again, you can think of Scaffold-ETH as this kind of toolkit that comes with really everything that you already kind of need to get going out of the box. And so there's a lot of boilerplate code, specifically front-end framework that's set up for you. Anyone that's deployed a smart contract on like Hardhat or started writing front end for that knows that you have to take your ABI and then inject it into your front end and kind of start toying with it that way. One of the secret sauce to Scaffold-ETH is it has this debug contracts folder. And what it's doing is it takes your ABI that gets generated when you deploy your contract, and it automatically injects it into Scaffold-ETH for you. And so this really gives you a lot of power because you don't have to worry about doing that import yourself. You don't have to worry about writing these read and write functions for your contract. You don't have to worry about writing read entries for your variables. All this interesting stuff, like being able to get the current contract, the network you're on, is all just kind of native to Scaffold-ETH, right? And so we can instantly see that we have the smart contract that has a read function for a counter, for a specific address. And then we can also see that it has a write function. So there's a greeting here that we have. It says build unstoppable apps. We can change that to whatever we want. So we can say ETHRome like this and hit send. And it's going to tell us, well, we don't have enough gas to pay for the transaction. So normally, if you're building a dApp, you probably are going to use Hardhat or something like that because you're going to need to be able to test your assumptions, and you're going to have to load in the private key from Hardhat. But Scaffold-ETH has this concept of burner wallets. So you can just come in here, click this little button, and you get a copy or a transfer of funds from Hardhat into your burner wallet. And then now we can propose the transaction, and it was successful. So instantly, we're able to just kind of take a smart contract, deploy it, and then just start tinkering with the functions to be able to test it. It even gives you like a transaction receipt here so that you can see what came back from the RPC. And then we also have this next little tab here, which is like an example UI, which kind of shows you like, oh, well, how would I do that with a fancier button, right? How would I send value in the transaction, right? Like maybe I want to change it to road to ETHRome like this and hit send. And so now we've been able to do this through this UI, but we've also proposed some value in the transaction. And so if we go back, we can see the counter changed to 2, and we go to debug contracts, and we see that this premium flag is changed from true to false. And so it's really like an out-of-the-box experience where you don't really have to think about a lot, and a lot of that code is already written for you. I do want to just show off real quick to the actual code base so you can kind of see what it looks like. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but we can see that it is a monorepo. So it has this base package JSON file, which has like all of the scripts written for you to do things really easily, like yarn deploy, yarn chain, yarn account, yarn start. All this stuff is kind of like written so it's easy for you. You know, when you first get started, you don't have to memorize these long commands, right? And then if we look in the packages folder, we see that we have two packages. We have Hardhat, and then we have our Next.js application. So everything in Scaffold-ETH is written in Next.js and TypeScript. And then again, this version right now that we're using is using Hardhat. So we have our contract right here. And so we can kind of dive in and look at what our contract's doing if we want to. We could like carve things out or make a hard-coded change here. And because we're using a Hardhat, we have a deploy script as well. So we can like alter the deployment. So there's a lot of out-of-the-box functionality that comes with it. We're also using WAGMI for some of the hooks. We're also using ETH hooks, which is like, or ETH components and ETH hooks, which are part of Scaffold-ETH. There's a lot of like interesting stuff you can do with those. That's all kind of documented in the GitHub package or the GitHub repo. We can kind of just take a look at that real quick, actually. If we go to the GitHub repo, it kind of walks through a lot about how the hot reloading works, how burner wallets work. And you know, you can integrate with your own existing MetaMask if you want, but you know, when you're doing local development, you can have issues with the nonce, and so the idea is just to use the burner wallets. And it walks you through everything that I just did. And there's also some docs here, which go into more detail about like how to do a use contract read, how to do a write, how to, you know, load in a contract and interact to it, how to use the wallet client with WAGMI. So there's a lot of cool stuff in here that will help you get started. And then, there's also a block explorer, which is quite interesting. So you can see like all of your transactions. So if you're really starting to build a more complex app and you want to be able to see what's going on, or if you're doing some like scripting with Hardhat and you want to like generate and kind of do some testing, you might be able to kind of scroll through here and see what's up. And the cool thing is these burner wallets also, like if I load a new incognito window like this and go to the same website, you'll notice we get a completely different kind of identity, right? Because we're in this like burner wallet mode. The burner wallet is actually stored inside of the browser session. So it's very, very cool, very, very powerful, especially if you want to start testing. We can just grab some funds into this kind of incognito window, and then we can come over here and you can see that it's reactive, where, you know, based on the size of the thing, we got the thing, and now we can come here and propose a new function, hello, like this, and send it. And then we can come back over here and we can see that in the block explorer that just showed up. So yeah, there's a lot of power with Scaffold-ETH. Yeah, so that's a real basic intro. Let's stop sharing.
Well, that was awesome. I do really suggest to all the guys that are watching us to try Scaffold-ETH to build a new project or to test your smart contracts, debug them, and so on and so forth. Because as you saw, it's full of functionalities and allows you to, as a developer, remove all of that burden that you have to recreate all the calls to the functions and also just the logic to connect to the chain or to get the funds from a faucet and so on and so forth. So that was awesome. And I have two questions, actually. The first one is, if someone would like to contribute to Scaffold-ETH 2, how can they do it? And the second question is, you talked about, like, we saw the version 2 of Scaffold-ETH. What did change from the first version, and what are like the new functionalities? Maybe that's something new that you want to talk about.
Yeah, those are both really, really great questions. You know, the first one I would really like actively suggest anyone who wants to get involved with Scaffold-ETH to be part of the Build Guild. So that just would involve going through those first 3 challenges. They're not too difficult. I think if you have a basic understanding of Solidity, or if you've written a smart contract before, you can probably get through those first 3 in just like a few hours. They're rather simple, especially the first one. It's more of just like following along. Once you're in the Build Guild, you can be a little more involved. There's a special Telegram channel you can start doing pull requests. You can actually get a stream if you're an active enough developer, where you can actually like manage pull requests or provide feature updates. And so everything can be done through Git. And if you, like I said, if you want to become an active member and actually get a stream, then you can actually get reimbursed for that stuff as well. The second question in regards to what's different between Scaffoldeth 1 and Scaffoldeth 2, I think one of the main things is that Scaffoldeth 1 is pretty much just in React, and it's using mostly JavaScript. There was a special TypeScript build that was, I would say, rather popular because of the speed performance that we saw with setting it up and getting up and running, and obviously the type safety that TypeScript provides. And so I think when they made Scaffoldeth 2, they wanted to focus on that stuff, which is keeping having the type safety, having the performance, and so that was a huge change that we made. And then on top of that, it was kind of a revamp for some of the UI, and so it's a little prettier, I would say. It's got a little bit more showmanship to it. It's a little bit lighter weight as well. The first version of Scaffoldeth had a lot of code in there. Some of that stuff has kind of been taken out. We also wanted to integrate with WAGMI, and we wanted to integrate with RainbowKit as well. So RainbowKit and WAGMI are kind of like the first kind of the first thing that you're going to use rather than having to write boilerplate code or like create your own components. And so those were kind of the major changes.
Thank you so much. That was pretty clear. Thank you.
Hey, Kevin, I have another question. So I feel like Scaffoldeth 2 is a great tool for prototyping. Is it right? So is it something for prototyping, for hackathons, so for some POC, so something like that? Or you think is a good solution here for production?
Yeah, I mean, definitely there are some applications that have been built on Scaffoldeth that there's obviously some things you need to do if you're building with Scaffoldeth to probably kind of lighten up the front end a little bit, right? There's some stuff that you can probably extract. There's some things that as a developer that you should do, like providing your own API keys and stuff like that. But yeah, I would say it is a developer tool, and it is definitely a learning tool, because I think the simplicity and the beauty you get out of just the yarn package style mono repo and all those commands you get is what makes it powerful, that you can get up and running quickly. But I think from a productions perspective, of course, you could build a dApp with Scaffoldeth. It just might, like I said, need some fine tuning to make sure that it's lightweight and true and tested, right? But like I said before, if you go on the Scaffoldeth IO, you can scroll down and see all the projects that have been built on it. And there's been a lot of interesting tools that are production ready.
Okay, perfect. So, Paolo, do you have other question regarding Scaffoldit?
No, I don't think so. Like, I just answered them. So
okay. So I have one more question regarding Scaffoldit. So what do you expect? I know that I'm talking about ETHRome and about Hackathon, but I want to make this question right now. So what do you expect from hackers building on Scaffoldit? So what's your thought?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we definitely want to see hackers using it if it makes sense. If the features are there, if the hacker is comfortable with TypeScript and comfortable with using hard hat. There's also, like I said before, there's a build. You can use the NPX command. So there's a create ETH NPX script that you can run, will allow you to use Foundry. So if you prefer Foundry, that's fine. I think what we'd like to see from the BuildGuild perspective is people build something cool or a use case of example of how you can use Scaffoldeth to integrate with another partner, or integrate with another, maybe someone that's providing a hackathon bounty, or doing something that's more kind of like cutting edge, like something with account abstraction, or something maybe with zero knowledge, or I don't know. I'm just kind of spitballing here, but doing stuff that showcase off how you do something interesting with Scaffolding. So I think that's kind of what we're going to aim to look for, is how people are using Scaffolding in an interesting way. And then in the end, you know, that can be taken into the community and then reused, right? So for other hackathons or other projects, right? So I think there's a lot of value there. And I go to a lot of hackathons, and so I see a lot of different stuff that gets created. And it's nice to be able to take that code and make it composable in a special build, right, of Scaffold-ETH. And we also do this thing called Bowtie Friday, which is really cool, where you can come in on Fridays, and we do like kind of like shill your build thing. And so we would love to, whoever wins the hackathon, maybe come on there and like show that off to the BuildGuild community to maybe like spark some interest and stuff like that, right?
Okay, perfect. We have a question from one of our member of Buidl-ETH. And do you see the question? So do you think to publish Scaffold-ETH also as an NPM, there is a main reason to use Yarn?
Yeah, so I think there's actually been some talk about maybe moving to NPM, but I think just the original concept was just to use a Yarn monorepo. I personally like NPM. I think it's powerful with some of the caching stuff and just some of the features that it has. Maybe even PNPM too. Everyone's talking about that now. But yeah, it's definitely, I think it's a consideration. I think from a development perspective, I am not as ingrained in that story, but I think it's definitely something that we've thought about and might happen in the future.
Okay, perfect. Another question from our Discord server. The question is, Scaffold-ETH version 1 was a little bit more difficult to modify in order to deploy your own application. Was it something that you upgraded, updated? So is it better right now to modify the basic code in order to deploy your own application?
That's a really, really good question. And I can tell you firsthand that yes, it is. So like with the first version of Scaffold-ETH, I guess it was a little more complicated to maybe like deploy applications that had lots of smart contracts, and like setting up additional contracts was kind of confusing and difficult to do. It's a lot easier with Scaffold-ETH too. You can literally just create a new contract and create a new deploy script, and as long as you just load that into your UI as a import, then it'll start showing up. So there's little things like that. Definitely the code base on the first Scaffold-ETH was around for a lot longer, so it kind of got larger and larger and larger, and there was a lot of content in the README that was actually inside of comments as well, inside of the configuration files, which was great if you were like digging around in the config files. But I think we've lightened that up a lot. So again, it's a lot more lightweight solution now. And yeah, I think it's pretty flexible. I mean, obviously you might run into some kind of limitation just with the way that it's architected, but for the most part, yeah, it's pretty flexible.
Yeah, so I have a question, but it's not like strictly related to Scaffold-ETH, but mainly to Buidl Guidl. And how was the project born? Like, how did it came up? Like, well, if you have some backstories about it.
Yeah, so I mean, I wasn't there at the beginning, but I can tell you that, for Austin specifically, he had a background in Web 2, similar to me. My background's in Web 2 and DevOps related stuff. And he kind of, when he started getting involved in the Ethereum community, I think it was same kind of problem I had when I started searching, was like, I didn't really know like what tools to get and how to put them together. And so he kind of created Scaffold-ETH first, I think, as this kind of solution to, like I said, make it easier for anyone who wants to come into the ecosystem to like build on, right? And then I think the Build Guild just kind of naturally formed around that. I don't know the exact story of how it came to be, but I think just like any project, especially an open source project, at some point it does get a little bit difficult to manage large amounts of pull requests. And then on top of that, like what Austin's provided in terms of this like funding developers to like pull the community together, I think is brilliant. And I think that was part of his drive is like, how can we get builders that are building cool stuff and get them using Scaffold-ETH and helping this kind of like organic growth of Scaffold-ETH. And I think that's why BuildGuild was created, is just for this way for all these developers to come into the community, be part of this, and help push it forward. It's kind of like building a building, but you're actually putting the blocks on the bottom. Everyone has to grab the building, pull it up, and start building the building blocks from the bottom up. And that's what the BuildGuild is. It's this group of builders that are focused on that, right?
That's a really awesome like metaphor, like of the pushing up the building and putting the blocks behind. It's like it actively shows how difficult it is, but how also the community and the people inside it are the ones that are actively like building the building up. So also we have another question from another member of the Urbit.eth community, which is how many people contribute actively to the project right now?
Yeah, so right now there's about 80 developers in the BuildGuild that have an active stream. I would say that not all of them are active. They have a stream, so it might be a much lower number than that. But we do have a pretty large number of people that are doing different things. Like we have a whole designer team is a good example, right? And they're just doing like design stuff and building out website features and UI related stuff. We have a UI team. We have me, who does a lot of like the workshops and kind of like helps support the community on the ground, and along with Austin and Carlos and Etta, who also do a lot of content creation. So there's a lot of parts to it. So I think from a contribution perspective to actual Scaffold-ETH too, it's a pretty big chunk. But there's a lot of dedicated people working on the projects.
Okay, thanks for the question, guys. I think we will have other questions soon. People are typing on our Discord server. So my question is, we talked about Scaffold-ETH. We talked a little bit about, for example, burner wallet that can be seen as another product or feature of BuidlGuild. So I want to ask you, can you make an overview of other products or features developed and published by BuildGuild, other than Scaffold-ETH, of course?
I'm sorry, can you answer the question one more time? So you mean like, are there other products?
For example, other products, or for example, speedrun Ethereum. I feel like is another part of your activity. So if you want to make an overview of...
So we have a GitHub repo, so or I should say a GitHub account, and so you can look in here and you can see kind of some of the pinned projects of what we've been working on. Obviously Scaffold-ETH 1 is here with over 8,000 stars. Scaffold-ETH 2 is kind of a little bit newer. We have the challenges is also this is basically everything that's on speedrun Ethereum. And then we have like an examples repo, which is for the old version of Scaffold-ETH. But we also have like ETH components, which is some of the components that are available in Scaffold-ETH 2 that are in there as well. If you go to repositories here, you can also go through and see some of the other stuff, BuildGuild website, the Scaffold-ETH IO website, the Punk wallet, which is a quite interesting little project. You can go to punkwallet.io. I'll go there right now. Let's see. Punk wallet is also built on Scaffold-ETH, but the concept is it generates it's basically like a burner wallet inside of your browser session. And so you can like kind of refresh and get a new one, or you can export your private key. You can send transactions through here. So a lot of times, like I pull it up on my phone and I'll use it as like my kind of like burner wallet for doing like testnet transactions. And so this is really cool. This was built on Scaffold-ETH as well. And then I'll just go back to here. If we go to the Scaffold-ETH website, I'm sorry, actually go to BuildGuild. No, sorry. Here. If we look at, I thought it was here. Let's see. Oh, speedrun Ethereum. No. I was trying to figure out where the list of tools is. Here, let's go Scaffold-ETH.io. Okay, I'm not sure where
many things.
Yeah. But there's a lot going on in the community, and we're always looking for new ideas too, right? Like if someone wants to come bring more ideas to the table, like of how we can like strengthen the BuildGuild community and the Scaffold-ETH tooling. Yeah, it's a good idea. There's also this really cool tool that Austin wrote a very long time ago called Build-ETH. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it, but it's also a really cool UI-based tool that allows you to kind of understand like how blockchains work and how Ethereum works.
Yeah. I remember it.
Yeah, and there's a really good playlist if you search it on YouTube that he goes into the details. So anyone that's coming into this space and is like new and wants to understand some of these concepts, watching him do the Build-ETH kind of walkthrough on that playlist is also really useful as well. So yeah, there's a lot of resources to consume, and there's a lot of ways to get involved. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I remember watching a lot of videos. I was in Refit. I basically learned everything at the beginning watching him. So that was great. So we have another question on our Discord. That is a very technical question. So the question is, when will the Foundry branch be merged into the main, going to replace our DAT and allowing testing in Solidity and Fuzzy? So Fuzzy test and Solidity.
Yeah, that's a good question. So let me share my screen again. And I do want to show off just because I didn't get a chance to do this earlier. There is the NPX command, right? Where you can say NPX create -ETH, whatever version you want. So in this case, we'll use latest. And it's kind of this cool, like choose as you go adventure style thing that we're kind of building. And the idea is that you can create a project just using the NPX command. So we can say like ETHRome, and it's going to ask you like, what framework do you want to use? So we can actually choose Foundry right now. So the idea is eventually, if new chains become available that you want to use, maybe that's something that, I don't know, maybe Foundry gets replaced tomorrow by something else. Maybe there's a new option later. You can choose Foundry. It's going to ask you if you want to install any packages. You can say yes or no. We'll say no. And it's going to initialize a repo for you. So it's going to run this for you, create a repo. And so we're going to add other stuff as well. So like one of the next tools that are going to be available is the subgraph tool. And so the subgraph tool will be able to have a working build of how you would deploy a subgraph. So it would come with an additional package in the monorepo for deploying subgraphs, either within Docker or using the CLI or something like that. But let's go into this repo real quick. And it's the same experience. So we can do the yarn install to install the dependencies. And it might take a second. So let me while it's doing that, let me go into here, Ethereum, create ETH, ETHRome, clear. Okay, so I just want to show you that we're actually using Foundry here. Okay, so we installed all the dependencies, so it took about 30 minutes or 30 seconds, and then we do a yarn chain. So we can see now that we're actually using, oh no, Rust backtrace, that's not good. Oh, it's because I'm already using, I gotta shut down my other chain. All right, let's try it again. There we go. So now we have Foundry running, and then we can come over here. Oh, sorry. We can do a yarn start, and then we can do a yarn deploy, -- reset. And then we can take a look at this code. Let's give it a second here, but we were able to just do our compilation with with Foundry. And then I think we can just run yarn test actually. Let's see.
Let's see.
Yep. So we have the your contract.sol, your contract test. So let's take a look at what this testing looks like. And I haven't messed with this a lot, but I can we can take a look and see. So Foundry, and we have our contracts, your contracts. And I'm not sure where the tests actually sit. Let's see. Is it deployments? Test. There we go. Your contract t.sol. So we have a example of how you would do a test against the your contract, which is the contract that comes with it, which this is the exact same contract in the previous demo I did, but we have that test. And so we have that ability to do a yarn test using Foundry test. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you for the question. And thank you for the answer. So now I want to ask you something else regarding BuildGuild. In particular, do you work regularly with other partners, or I don't know, are just short-term, maybe short-term partners? So tell us something more about this aspect of BuildGuild.
Yeah, I mean, right now the Build Guild is trying to be really active and involved in like hackathons. So, you know, that's one of the main drivers is we're trying to onboard more users to Ethereum, right? Like I think that's the end goal, is to onboard more developers into the ecosystem. And so, you know, Scaffold-ETH is that good option. So we're trying to be involved with more partners. So hackathons, anywhere we can actually like give a conference, like we do a lot of talks at like Dystopia Lab events. ETH Global is one of the most popular hackathons right out there. And so we do some stuff with them. You'll often see a Scaffold-ETH talk there. And yeah, I think we are. Also, I work for Edge and Node, so working on the graph. And so there's kind of this natural synergy there. There's actually a cool grant that we just got passed from the Graph Foundation to actually fund some BuildGuild developers on doing integrations with the graph. So if you're a subgraph developer and you also know how to use Scaffold-ETH, maybe there's some kind of like synergy there. We can actually set up a stream of GRT for subgraph developers that are using Scaffold-ETH and increase that kind of like partnership. And so, yeah, we do that stuff with a lot of other protocols and stuff like that. There's a lot kind of down the road that I think I can't really speak to yet, but yes, we are always looking for partnering with other protocols and events, you know, because we're very strong about community and involvement. Good question.
Thank you.
Another question. I don't remember if you actually already answered it. Maybe it was a little bit scattered when you were talking about both BuildGuild and Scaffold-ETH. But where can someone which is interested in BuildGuild or in Scaffold-ETH can dig deeper? Like, do you have some links, some Telegram rooms with developers, stuff like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So all of our, I should say most of our Telegram channels. So we have a number of Telegram channels. We have like the basic kind of like Scaffold-ETH developer chat that is kind of open. If you do a search for that, you can just, you know, search for BuildGuild or actually Scaffold-ETH developer chat. And there's about 2,000 people in there last time I checked. It's a pretty active community just out of the box right there. You can go there and kind of get some engagement. As you go through Speedrun Ethereum, you start getting invited to private Telegram channels that are kind of invite only. And so the idea is that you have this kind of like dedicated Telegram channel where other people are going through the same challenge. There's some people from obviously the Build Guild there to support you along the way. And those kind of unlock those for you. We also have a Discord channel. That's definitely something that you can join as well. If you prefer Discord over Telegram. I know not everyone likes Telegram and not everyone likes Discord, so we kind of have both those options. But I would say the Telegram chat, the Scaffold-ETH one is the most active. And if anyone, really wants to get involved, the first thing you should do is go to speedrunethereum.com. Connect your wallet, go through those challenges, get kind of like through those three challenges, and you'll get invited to the Build Guild Telegram channel after that, which is a little bit more kind of like, oh, okay, you've kind of gone through these steps and you're a little more vetted and ready to be more involved in the community. And so that's kind of like the path that I would suggest people who want to get involved follow.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kevin. So I think now we can talk a little bit more about ETHRome. So, of course, BuildGuild and in particular Scaffold-ETH will be a bounty sponsor of ETHRome. So there will be a bounty prize for hackers building on top of Scaffold-ETH version 2. And so I want to ask you, do you have any advice for hackers? And why should they use Scaffold-ETH?
Yeah, for sure. Those are both good questions. I'll start with why they should use Scaffold-ETH. I mean, obviously, I've kind of showed it off a little bit. I think everyone has a pretty good understanding of how it works. It's really easy, right? It's just going to save you some time. I doubt there's going to be too many reasons where you wouldn't want to use it. And so it's just a good option. Well, first of all, it's going to check off an option for a bounty prize, right? So if you're using Scaffold-ETH, we're going to be giving a bounty. We haven't decided yet, but it's either going to be like the best build of Scaffold-ETH, one big bounty, or we might do like a first and second place where we kind of split up that bounty. And so that would be a huge driver for me if I was coming to the hackathon is, hey, it's an extra bounty. And it like I said, it's a really cool tool to use. And I think people will be pleasantly surprised with a lot of the experience that you have building on it. My advice to any hackers is don't be afraid to take some time and some Zen time to relax and rest your mind, and don't try to go full bore speed the entire weekend because the human body is not really designed for that. And I've found that a lot of hackathon winners at hackathons are actually very successful if they take breaks and kind of like check out a little bit and kind of do some self-care. So I think self-care and like energy management is actually very, very critical because your brain cannot function. So just be mindful of that. Unless you're the kind of person who wants to go to the after party every night and, wake up early for the snacks and stuff like that, which is fine. You're going to be really, really tired on Sunday. But otherwise, just take some self-care. Yeah.
You have to sleep, guys. Please sleep a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, even if it's just like, a couple hours a night, I think, just try to get some rest and try to just do some Zen time, I like to say, where you either meditate or just close your eyes, listen to some music that relaxes you. I think that actually there's a lot of value there in resting your brain.
Okay, and sorry, Arbor, just one question for me, and then you can go. So I want to ask you, in your opinion, what is the most important thing during an hackathon? So can be, for example, a good idea or a good execution, or for example, in my opinion, you have to understand if you have to switch a little bit your idea during the execution. So, for example, you have to receive some feedback from sponsor, from bounty sponsor, and you have to understand if you have to change something or not. So, in your opinion, what is the most important thing to keep in mind during the 3 days of hackathons?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think you kind of hit that one on the head. Is as you start innovating on something and start coming up with some ideas, I think it's pretty critical to get some feedback, even if it's like internally on the team and really listening to your team on like what is going to be valuable, but not getting into arguments about semantics of stuff. Obviously start building and kind of creating something, but don't be afraid to like voice your opinion in the team, or don't be afraid to get some input from people outside, like the vendors and whatnot. I think the other thing is something that I would say is like, if you're building something, focus on the core functionality of the product and the concept as being like the #1 most important thing. A lot of people at these hackathons, they tend to focus too much on like the and I'm not saying UI is not important. Making something look good is obviously a good idea. It's gonna look better for when you're presenting. But really, the idea and the innovation of what you're trying to come across in your application, I think, is more important. And sticking to that and kind of focusing on what problems it's going to solve, right? And if it's something unique enough and compelling enough, I think it provides a lot of value to being more focused on that than creating like a Figma and like creating a slide deck that's beautiful. And if you can just tell the story of what this app's going to do and build it out, I think that goes a long way.
I do agree 100% with you. That's a really good advice for hackers. And we have a question from one of the other co-founders of Uber, which is, what is a project that really stood out for you at an hackathon, like a project that you really liked a lot, and which aspects of that projects were really interesting for you? Like, if you do remember, of course.
Yeah,
that's a good question.
Yeah, that is a good question. That is a really good question.
That is tough.
I mean, I've seen so many hackathon projects. Yeah, I mean, I got to give a shout out to my friend Herman. He recently did a project. He's all around at all these global hackathons. I always see him, but him and his team. But they built a tool called Rollamate, which was a really cool idea, where they're actually using like the mempool to do 0 or almost 0 gasless transactions. And so they built this kind of like really cool tool. They did a good job at like digging into a problem at the time. Like for me, it was, or from what I saw, it was, I think it was actually ETH Waterloo is what it was. Vitalik did a talk, and he talked about this issue that he had at a cafe where he was like trying to kind of like split up some funds because someone paid for the coffee and he wanted to be able to send some value. And it was like at the time, like gas prices were crazy. And so he found this problem, well, their team found this problem and they solved it in a quite interesting way that no one had ever thought to do, like using the mempool, like to propose transactions that are just, they know are going to get declined, is just quite interesting. So I think thinking outside the box is crucial as well to when you're at a hackathon, because there's a good chance that someone's probably thought of your idea already and maybe even tried it at another hackathon. So don't be afraid to kind of like, go outside the box and do something that's somewhat radical.
Thank you.
Yeah, Kevin, I feel like sometimes hackers overthink maybe and try to find a complex thing to develop, or a complex architecture or whatever, instead of maybe focusing on finding a solution for a problem in the space. Do you agree or not?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I think also a lot of hackers try to keep it simple, and they're afraid to kind of get out of their comfort zone. But yeah, no, I agree. I think it's that's the kind of stuff that hackathons provide the most value to, especially to the ecosystem. Is like, we have these problems that we know exist, and those are the ones that we should be really like grinding our heads at a hackathon to solve. Some of the stuff that actually a great resource is just to look at Vitalik's blog. Like, he points out some things that are not quite where they need to be. That's this kind of thing that you need to be thinking about. Not necessarily just the buzzwords that everyone's talking about, right? But thinking about actual problems, right, and how you can solve those. I think that's good. That's good observation.
Okay, Orbo, do you have any other question?
I don't think so. Let me check if someone has some questions from home, but No?
Yeah, I feel like it was a super interesting chat and also a very technical chat. So it was fun for me. Thank you very much. And let's close this live stream. And I ask you, why, in your opinion, an hacker should join ETHRome and build on Scaffold-ETH?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, first of all, you should join ETHRome because you can come hang out with the awesome team that organized it. You know, I can already tell there's going to be good vibes, and you know, the organizers have won a hackathon before too as well, which is great. So I think that, and they've been to a lot of hackathons. So I think that the team that's organized ETHRome has kept that in mind with organizing it, and so they're fostering that idea and those concepts. So I think it'll be successful. I'm very proud of everything you guys are doing. So I'm very optimistic. And sorry, what was the second question?
The second question was just why someone should build on Scaffold-ETH, but I feel like you already answered this question during the live. So if you wanna close this live with some thoughts, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, just keep keep optimistic, and if you have some time to get your hands dirty with Scaffold-ETH ahead of time, I think it'll provide a lot of value to your team, especially if you have some new people that are kind of new to the ecosystem. I think Scaffold-ETH is a good example. If you guys want, you guys can follow me on Twitter. My handle is cryptomastery_. Open book. So if you want to shoot me any DMs, if you guys have questions or have issues, anything, just let me know.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin. And I think we're gonna close the live.
Yeah, we're gonna
Thanks,
close
guys.
the live and see you in Rome.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Bye, Kevin. Bye to everybody.